What's up, Weirdo Swarm, and Merry Gizzmas once again. You are listening to Podagon Infinity, the podcast that opens the door to all things King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard. My name is Joe.
And my name is Spenser. A Merry Gizzmas to all, yes indeed, however you choose to celebrate this time of year. It's a beautiful time of year, a fun time to sit back and reflect and maybe even eventually look forward to what's coming in the new year. But Joe, kind of a little more of a free-form episode today, just kind of digging into what we got into, what our listeners got into, what Giz got into, of course. And today's episode is going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah, definitely a little free-form, little loosey-goosey, but we have sort of a brief outline of all the exciting things that happened in the world of King Giz this year, as well as doing what we did at the end of the year last year, which is giving our favorite music of the year as well, which, hint, hint, of course, includes lots of Giz as usual. But before we get into all that fun stuff, we have a couple of messages from some listeners unrelated to this specific episode. Actually, in particular, we have some responses to our last episode, which was our Polygon Dwanaland album discussion. I'm going to start off first with an email from Alex C., who says, Joe and Spenser, happy to finally write to you both. Been enjoying the pod since finding it over the summer. Been a Giz head since the time Petro Dragonic came out. I wanted to comment on two things. Sharing some resources on the music theory, time signatures, etc. in King Gizzard. And Alex here actually sent us 4 different YouTube links to 4 different videos related to just that, time signatures, music theory related stuff in their music. The first 2 are actually from a YouTube channel called David Bennett Piano, who I've referenced in previous episodes before. He makes these really great, interesting music theory kind of breakdowns, not just on Giz stuff, but on all kinds of music. His content is really interesting, and I think it's really great for people who have a hard time understanding that heavy music theory stuff. Sometimes he does a great job of breaking it down and makes you appreciate all these little details in music. But the first 2 from him that were sent in this email, the first one is titled How King Gizzard Use Odd Time Signatures, Polyrhythm, and Polymeter. And he actually talks a lot about poly, to add another poly in there, Polygon Dwanaland quite a bit in this video, because obviously that's their prime example of doing the very progressive and heavy use of odd time signature stuff. And I've seen this video before, actually. And like I said, I've referenced this guy on the show before. And I can't believe I forgot to go back and watch this again before doing that episode. I can't believe it didn't even cross my mind. And I wish I had, because I'm sure there's some really useful info in here that could have helped me out. Obviously, I found some other resources and figured out a lot of the time signatures through that. But yeah, this is a really great video. So if you haven't seen that before, check that out. And the second one from that same guy is called King Gizzard Used Every Mode on This Album. And that is a video specifically about ice death planets, lungs, mushrooms, and lava. And I'm pretty sure I referenced that one when we covered that album on the show.
Yeah.
Aside from those 2 videos, they sent just 2 more from some other creators. First one is called King Gizzard's Strange Changes, which I do believe I've watched before. That's from the channel Expert Opinions. And then we also have another one called The Microtonal Scales of King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard, parentheses, a primer and compendium, and that is by The Pop Descriptivist. Now, this one I have not seen before, so I'm going to have to check this one out, but the others I have seen. Again, I can't believe I didn't reference that David Bennett time signature and polyrhythm King Gizzard specific video before doing Polygon Dwanaland. I wish I had, but either way, thank you for sending us these way. These are great resources to learn some of the cool music theory stuff going on behind their music. But after those YouTube links, they just wrap up their email with, the second point I'd like to share is, as a frequent user of just one earphone, I use the mono option whenever I am listening to hear both stereo channels in the one earphone. You can toggle this on both Apple and Android devices in the accessibility settings. I've even set up an automation to prompt whether I'm listening to 1 or 2 headphones whenever I connect them to change for me automatically. Keep up the great work. And that's again from Alex. So that's really interesting. That's something that we touched on the last episode. I believe you brought that up, Spenser, is that on Polygon Dwanaland and on a handful of their different records, but there's a lot of moments on there specifically where certain instruments are only, fully panned to one side or the other. And if you're at work or whatever, you can only use one earbud, whatever, for whatever reason, you end up missing out on some of the musical content. So is this something that you've looked into since we got this email, or are you going to try this out now and see if that helps you?
I'm going to try it out in the days to come. Yeah. I mean, I have a cross-country flight coming up. My wife and I are going to visit family, so I got a few hours to kind of play with some stuff, so I'll definitely check it out then. I did email Alex back personally and told them, hey, thank you for the insight, for the advice. I'm definitely going to try that out. Wish I would have known that ahead of time before the Polygon Dwanaland episode for better prep, but hey. We also got another comment touching on Polygon Dwanaland, and it came from our good friend on Blue Sky, Quetzalcoatlus Wellness Institute, who says, my interpretation of the lyric, the sounds of the constant lightning would be enough to block out the thought of the end of the world if it weren't for our tinnitus from the bomb, is the everyday news blocking out our march toward extinction, and we have constant threat of the bomb in the background. Okay, I'm just going to call you Quetzal for short, verbally from now on. Just
let's go with that.
That is such a long but cool username. Wow, that's like big brain moment. I don't know how to unpack it, but I think that explanation can be just as good as any in my mind. What do you think, Joe?
Yeah, no, I like that. I think that's a great perspective, and I appreciate it. This is the exact kind of stuff I was looking for when we put out the call of like, hey, if you think we're missing something or you've got your own interpretations of the songs on Poly, like, please send them in. This is the exact kind of stuff I wanted to hear, so I really appreciate this message. But yeah, I think that's a great perspective. Obviously, the band is known for sort of using these grand sort of like fantasy themes as like allegories for real life things. And so I think there are a lot of ways in which the themes in Polygon Dwanaland, even though they are sort of science fiction and fantastical, can be connected to real world things, and often very dark real world things like this. So I think that's a great interpretation.
Thank you to the two of you who wrote in with those messages. We appreciate it as always. We do have some more messages, of course, to get to a little bit later on in the show, so stick around for those. Those are going to relate a little more toward 2025, the year in Giz that has been. So look forward to that. Plenty more fun ahead. Joe, ready to roll right along?
Yes, indeed. Let's get into the real meat of today's episode. It has been an exciting year for us Giz fans. We got an orchestral B741 follow-up album, mind-blowing orchestra performances of that album and previous songs of their catalog, synthified rave versions of many of the band's iconic tunes, and the band's first ever Field of Vision Festival in Colorado. So let us take a trip down memory lane and revisit all of the exciting things that King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard had to offer us in 2025.
So we collaborated on building this sort of timeline, this chronological timeline of what all happened in 2025 as it pertains to King Gizzard. First off, the first significant event of 2025 was March 20th when Dead Stick leaked on a Japanese website. And Joe, you and I both remember exactly where we were, who we were with, what we were doing when that news hit. And of course, us being the manic giz heads that we are, our brains just started going kerflooey, and we were just like, I gotta hear it. What's this all about?
Yeah. I gotta hear it. And also content for the show.
Exactly.
Content for the show. Yeah. This was sort of the first, like, as far as I can recall, the first kind of event of the year of things that were happening. We actually got a tip from a listener that this had leaked. They had messaged us. I'm going to keep them anonymous, of course, but they were able to share this leaked track with us. So we got to listen in before Dead Stick was officially released a couple weeks later. And man, that was exciting stuff. Yeah, I remember where I was. I was literally at a diner getting dinner with family, and Spenser starts blowing up my phone like, "Yo, well, look at this! What the fuck is this?" And I immediately, had to get my hands on it and listen on the way home. And that was exciting stuff. Of course, we already had one single from the upcoming Phantom Island album, and that was the title track. Phantom Island actually came out in the previous October at the end of 24. So that I was kind of forgetting how early that came out before the release of any more singles, and of course the album itself was not until the summer. So yeah, but that was the first kind of new exciting thing of the year was, there's another single that accidentally went live on this Japanese website and people are hearing it. But man, that was really fun to get our hands on that exciting stuff.
Yeah. I remember my wife and I were with a couple of friends at trivia night at a brewery not far from where we live. And I think trivia had just recently concluded when I got the news. And so I was free to kind of like scroll, and I probably had like the crazy bug eyes going and had a significant buzz at that time. But I'm just like, okay, like I was as clear-headed as ever despite the buzz from all those tape tasty craft beers.
Yeah.
And, I'm just like, okay, what does it sound like? I don't want to be like super kooky and like, okay, I got to get out of the brewery and go listen in the parking lot, like on loudspeaker phone. I was calm, kept my composure. I'm like, I'm just going to listen at home when I can put on headphones and just sit with it for a few minutes. And I did not regret that choice. First time I heard it, I'm like, okay, this is beautiful. This is fun.
Yeah.
And I have more to say about Dead Stick as this segment on the show unfolds, but love at first listen, suffice it to say.
Yeah, definitely. It was a really a nice contrast to Phantom Island, like being this kind of epic, longer, slow build kind of song, and then Dead Stick was just pure 3 minutes of pure fun. So it was a really nice contrast and really fun. Dead Stick would eventually actually release for real this time to the public on April 15th, and that was both the song and the music video. And then we got a third single, Grow Wings and Fly, single and video released on May 13th, so just about a month or so later. And it feels like just yesterday that came out. We were sort of contrasting those three different singles, comparing them and talking about them. We did a whole episode after Grow Wings and Fly came out where we just sort of talked a whole lot about those three singles and sort of our predictions for where the rest of the album might go. And man, it feels like just yesterday.
Yeah, it really does. I actually have a rather unfortunate memory associated with Grow Wings and Fly. One of the first few times I blasted it in my car was when I was getting on the highway heading home from work and my check engine light came on. It was almost as if the song was trying to give my car a send-off. It's like, okay, this car's about to go bye-bye. This engine is donezo, and you're going to have a big-ass like hole in your wallet coming up.
Yeah.
Anyway, but yeah, it felt like not that long ago. And just such a gorgeous closing track to what's been a beautiful album. We've obviously done our reaction episode to that album. We'll eventually get to our full discussion on that sometime in the months to come. So already the mid to late springtime in the Giz world, just already chock full of some exciting new music and developments. Mm-hmm. And then, of course, just a few days after the Grow Wings and Fly single officially dropped, came the European residency. May 18th through June 10th, Giz hit 5 different countries in Europe, 3 shows at each of them. They were all rock shows, of course, at that point. They hit Lisbon, Portugal, Barcelona, Spain, Vilnius, Lithuania, Athens, Greece, and Plovdiv, Bulgaria. Just some tremendously exciting shows for the whole Weirdo Swarm, whether you were able to attend in person or join the couch tour, just like you and I were, Joe. Since we weren't able to be at any of those in person, we do know of several people who were able to go. That's got to be such a huge privilege. I know Ben Bacon, when you had him on the show, you did your little one-on-one interview with him there a couple months back.
Yes.
He had some really cool things to say about the Bulgaria, ancient theater was such a cool spot to take in a show. What I would have given to take in just one of those shows.
Yeah, some of those venues just look so magical. I think the one that I wish I could have been at the most was the show in Athens, because the theater was literally like on top of a mountain overlooking the city of Athens, like this ancient land. You read all this history about ancient Greece and all this stuff and these old structures that are still standing after thousands of years. And I have a little bit of Greek ancestry in my blood, so I've never gotten to go to Greece, so that should have been my time, my calling to go, but I'll find some other reason to go. Don't worry. But that's just some of those venues, just unlike anything you could get over here in the States. It just gorgeous stuff. So yeah, that was a really exciting time following along with those streams of those Europe residency shows, because up until then, we had a little bit of a gap. They hadn't played any shows since they finished up their U.S. tour. I guess in the previous fall, like November or something like that. I think they wrapped up in the U.S. So we had to wait, 5-6 months, something like that, and then get them playing some shows again. So yeah, that was really fun to sort of get the Giz fix by following along with the Europe shows after that little break. Very shortly after the wrap-up of the Europe residency shows, the band was scheduled to play the Bonnaroo Festival here in the U.S. I think is that in Tennessee?
Tennessee, yep.
And unfortunately, due to, I think, storms and flooding issues, Bonnaroo was completely canceled. It was supposed to be June 13th to 15th, and they were supposed to play every single day. They were going to do 3 different sets at each day of the festival, and that got completely canceled. And I felt terrible for, not just for the band not being able to do that, but even more so, all of the fans that had already made travel plans and made it out there. I mean, you know how the Weirdo Swarm is. People shell out money to travel far and wide to see them in new places and road trip or buying flights or whatever it is. And there were some people that we follow online who, I was seeing just kind of stuck in this like field with nothing going on where the festival was supposed to be happening, and it's raining and they're just like dancing in the rain and making the best of it. But unfortunate to see, man. That must have really been frustrating for people that were supposed to be there.
Yeah, that was really sad news when it came. And I've never been like a festival kind of guy. Obviously, I think if the opportunity presents itself in the future, I could certainly make an exception for Giz. But for those whose alley that's more so down, that had to have been tremendously sad. And again, I feel so terrible for all of you for reasons like you, Joe, just said. Like all the travel plans, just all for naught. Luckily, it does sound like some of those people did kind of make the most of the situation, like you said, kind of dancing and singing in the rain, whatever.
Yeah.
Did what they could, but hopefully they'll get another chance to play the festival there. But actually, we should note that same weekend, June 13th, which was going to be the first day of Bonnaroo, was the same day that Phantom Island, the album, dropped. And it was as if it was, I'm sure this was intentional on the band's part. June 13th was a Friday the 13th, so kind of adding a little aura of spookiness on top of it. And it worked out nicely. It fit well. And if anything, I guess a little bit of silver lining. Bonnaroo, if I could be so bold to say this, I guess that kind of gave the Swarm maybe a little more of a chance to sit with the album and sort of focus on that after it had come out. Obviously, reactions to it kind of varied all across the board. Really looking forward to eventually doing our full album discussion episode on that in a couple more months' time. Yeah. So obviously the latest addition to the Giz discography, album number 27, made a big splash either way, and that was really one of the major highlights of 25 for Giz.
Yeah, and of course, along with this orchestral rock album came the orchestral shows. The U.S. part of the orchestra tour started July 28th and ran up through August 11th. The first of which, of course, kicked off in Philadelphia. We were there. That was our city. And oh my God, what a time. I cannot even... I think that was my favorite concert I've ever seen. It was just magical. The album, I enjoyed it even more live than I do just listening to the recording of it. It was just so magical and so tightly put together, so tight. Like you could tell they really practiced their asses off to get it tight, to get it perfect. They sounded so good. And then the other songs that we got afterwards were just mind-blowing. They played some of their biggest songs like Crumbling Castle and what else was it? Dragon, Iron Lung. Oh, God, whatever. You probably know what they are at this point. They played those same songs at every one of the orchestra shows, except for the little break song where they give the orchestra a break and just jam by themselves. But being that the Philly show was the first show of the tour and we were there, we had no idea what to expect. So it was really special being there and just having that shock and surprise and delight every time they started another song of just, oh my God. I remember when they went into Crumbling Castle, I was like ripping my hair out like, oh my God, I can't believe this is happening. Like I'm just, my hands on my face, just wide-eyed. Oh my God. So yeah, really magical. They played a ton of shows, and obviously there was a couple rock shows sprinkled in there as well, right? The 2nd of August and then the 15th to 17th were U.S. rock shows, one of which was Forest Hills, right? And we were there as well. That was the other show of the year that we were able to get to, just those two. But I think it was a great, nicely rounded experience getting the special orchestra show and then a regular rock show that had some synth stuff going on the table as well. Yeah.
And you and I kind of had similar thought patterns when those dates were announced and tickets were made available, that we kind of wanted a taste of both sides of the band. Like we knew we wanted in on that inaugural orchestral performance, but also we wanted some of the kind of classic Giz feel for the rock show. So we did, of course, go to Forest Hills. Giz twice in the span of 1 week, dude. That was so sick. I had such a good time with that.
Yeah.
And then you mentioned the 15th through the 17th. I'm just going to roll right into this. The inaugural Field of Vision in Buena Vista, Colorado. We, of course, did not have the chance to go, but many of of those who follow us here on the show and who we have communicated with did and had a fantastic time. And I think, as is the case with any big festival in its inaugural year, there were maybe some logistical hitches and things to maybe iron out. But overall, it seemed like everybody had a great time, enjoyed the band, enjoyed the eclectic set lists, and a couple of the special guests that were present. We can get into those a little bit later as well. Remember, Jello Biafra was there from Dead Kennedys. But yeah, good time had by all who were able to attend that inaugural Field of Vision.
Yeah, and if you're like us and you weren't able to make it out there for Field of Vision, definitely check out our episode where I interviewed number one Giz fan Ben Bacon. The title of that episode is He's Been Everywhere, because this guy, I mean, he's number one as far as anybody I've met that's gone to, I think, almost 100 Giz shows, something like that. He was just in Australia as well. He actually did make it out there. That was something we talked about. We were talking about that in our interview, and I asked him if he was going to make it out there, and he said, I'm trying to, and if I do make it there, I'll hit my 100th Giz show in Australia. So I guess he is up to 100 now. I'd have to check in, but we went into a lot of detail about his experience at Field of Vision and all the magic and wacky shit going on there that weekend. So if you missed out on that, if you haven't heard that episode and you want to hear more of a first-person perspective on the festival, definitely check out our episode where I interviewed him. It was so much fun. And the band hinted at this at the end of Field of Vision, at the very last day of the festival, that they would be coming back to do it again. And not too long ago, they put out the official statement that Field of Vision 2 will be happening in the same spot once again, Buena Vista, Colorado, at Meadow Creek. And that's going to be August 14th through 16th, 2026. And there's some really cool looking guests that are joining them. Some names I've heard and listened to before. I don't think I'm gonna make it. I don't know yet. It's kind of an idea in my mind. Spencer, like you mentioned, I'm also not really a festival person, especially when it involves like camping out and all that stuff. And, traveling that far, getting the tickets, getting your place to stay and other travel costs and whatever, it's going to be quite an expensive trip if I do decide to do it. So that's just another factor. And I don't know, I like my creature comforts. I like sleeping in a hotel or in my own bed or having electricity, basic things like that. I'm so spoiled by modern amenities that I don't know if I'd love camping out like that, but I'm sure it would be a hell of an experience. So I don't know. I think I still have time to make up my mind on that. I don't know how fast if it might sell out or anything. I don't know. But yeah, anyway, for anyone who's interested, it's coming back. So we're going to be excited either way, whether we're there or not, to follow along and talk about it when that happens next August.
Hell yeah. Next on our timeline that we've built here in the year 2025, October the 24th was the free rave show, free of admission, in Fed Square in Melbourne. So the band going right back home, right to their humble beginnings in the city of Melbourne. And this was a show that they actually announced, I believe, Joe, just like a week ahead of time. They kind of intentionally gave short notice. It's kind of a boom, here's a surprise. If you're close or in the area, or if you think you can make it on short notice, get here. We want to have you here. And it was such a cool show. I was able to catch bits and pieces of it. And it was ultimately kind of a week ahead of time, like a warm-up to the rave tour that was to follow throughout Europe, the UK, and Australia, and of course, orchestral shows and a couple of rock shows sprinkled in there for that latter tour as well. But I think people really enjoyed that, and it was good to kind of get our first full taste, whether you listening in, whether you're able to make it or you were also watching the live stream, just like this is essentially what a Giz rave show is going to be.
Yeah, I think it's great that they did this. This is a nice sort of teaser of what's to come, but also I think, like you said, a nice warm-up to the rave show that they were about to embark on, or the rave tour, I should say, that they were about to embark on in Europe. So yeah, really cool that they did this. It was kind of a fun last minute, like, hey, next Friday or whatever day it was, like, show up here, we're playing, it's free, just first come, first serve, just get over there. So really cool. I love to see them doing stuff like that. And that one was live streamed as well. I remember following along with some parts of it here and there, and it was just really got the excitement going for that whole upcoming tour. It was awesome. And that tour that would follow would run from October 31st all the way till December 13th, which was just 6 days ago as of the time we're recording this. That last show in Melbourne, they finished up back in their home city once again, doing a big rave show there. Man, what a wild ride. We're going to get into more details about the specifics of that because we have an upcoming segment right after this at the end of our timeline here where we're going to get into some specifics about song debuts and, different exciting stuff like that they actually did at those shows. But man, what a huge tour. So much fun. I didn't get to watch every show, but it was just so exciting, never knowing what the hell they were going to do on Nathan on the synth table. And just really cool stuff. And we mentioned that we were at that Forest Hills show earlier this year. They actually, as well as announcing the next Field of Vision, announced that they're coming back to Forest Hills again.
Yep.
This go around next summer, they're going to be doing 3 nights, actually, a Thursday, Friday, and Saturday night. And the last of those 3 shows being a rave show in Forest Hills. And Spenser has secured us some tickets for that very show. So we're going to be going to that shit. So we're going to have to wait a little while, but we are going to get the Rave Giz experience. And who knows, maybe by then there might even be more music. There might be that other, rumored electronic album might be out by then. There might be some new material for them to work with. Who knows? I also think I'd like to go to the rock show the night before as well. I'm going to see if I feel like mustering up the energy to drive up to New York twice, 2 days in a row. Or staying somewhere. I imagine it's probably expensive to stay somewhere for the night. I don't know, but
worth looking into.
Yeah. Anyway, very excited for that.
Yeah. It's going to be a hell of a lot of fun, and I'm certainly excited for that rave show. So it'll be just so cool to kind of like humble brag after this that I will have been to Giz rock shows and a rave show and an orchestral show, just kind of getting a little taste of every side of the band now.
Yeah. And you know what? For myself, I can also add acoustic show to that list as well.
Oh, yeah,
true. Four different varieties of Giz show. Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, I would be really happy for you if you're able to make that rock show as well. I won't be able to. My brother will be in town visiting. He'll actually be coming with us for the rave show. He's a little bit of a newer up and coming Giz head, but I offered him the opportunity to join us, and he's just like, oh hell yeah, I'll come.
Nice.
So he's going to be hitching a ride with us, and he and I are actually going to see Rush in Philadelphia the night before the rave show. So that's why I will not be partaking in the Giz rock show. So yeah, just happy coincidence there. Rush and Giz on back-to-back nights. It's going to be such an exciting weekend of music.
It's 2 of your favorites right there. That's going to be a crazy hell of a weekend.
Yeah, dude. But kind of boiling it down, these various legs of the tours that Giz undertook this year, by my count, and listeners feel free to correct me if this is off, I got a total of 47 shows that the band played this year, 22 rock shows, 16 orchestral, and 9 raves. That is just an insane calendar of events, and of course...
And one big-ass festival.
One big-ass festival in there, yep. And just a crazy year this year, 2025. And of course, at the time Phantom Island dropped, everything between the hints of in the lyrics on that album of, oh, we miss our families, this and that, and the album artwork just being so all-encompassing of all the Giz lore and figures. People were starting to wonder, oh boy, are they gonna go on hiatus? Are they gonna scale back? And it seems like they might be scaling back a little bit in terms of the touring, at least for now, given the kind of few dates they've announced for 2026 at this stage.
Yeah.
But they've deserved it. If anybody on this planet has deserved such a break in the music world, it is King Gizzard and Lizard Wizard, because these guys have worked their ever-loving asses off to put out incredible music and to put together one rollicking show after another.
Yeah, and speaking of the Field of Vision and the Forest Hills shows, these upcoming, well, I shouldn't say upcoming, it's pretty far in the future as of right now, but the shows when they return to the U.S. next summer, those are the only shows they've announced. They haven't announced any greater tour for the U.S., and in fact, these seem to be the only shows that they're going to play in the U.S. next summer, because I'm looking at their Instagram post where they first announced this, it says 6 out of 7 of the USA shows for 2026, and it has 2 images. One is the Field of Vision 2 poster, which is obviously 3 dates, and then another photo with the dates for Forest Hills, the 3 dates for that. So that's 6 shows, and it says 6 out of 7, meaning that there's just one more unannounced American show that they're doing at some point. Yeah. I don't know where or what that's going to be. I thought I heard someone somewhere saying that it's going to be a show in California somewhere, like in LA or something like that. I don't know I don't remember where I read that or who was talking about it, if they're credible or not. I have no idea. It would kind of make sense if they're only doing these few shows to do like an East Coast and a West Coast thing maybe. But it's saying that it's 6 out of 7 means that there's only one more, so it wouldn't be like, a 3-day thing like the New York show. So
right.
I really don't know, but that's another big reason why I want to go to all 3 or at least 2 of the Forest Hill shows, because that might be all we get for the year as far as live Giz in the U.S. So it's either that, or if they tour elsewhere, I'm going to have to do some traveling outside of the country.
Certainly, yeah. And to touch on the Instagram post that you just mentioned, where they said, 6 out of 7 dates for 2026, and they typed in the caption as 6/7. I initially read that as 6-7, just like playing into that joke that's just all over the planet right now.
The funny number the kids love these days.
Yeah, I know. But
kids and their numbers.
The kids and their numbers, I tell you. But
whatever happened to 69 and 420?
Yeah, come on.
Those are the OGs.
Those are the OG funny ones, yeah. But I should have stepped back to think. Number one, I don't take Giz to be a band that would normally play into like that goofy, lowbrow, like childish humor. Not that it's like stooping that low for them, but not something they would normally do, I feel. So
except for saying like don't slip on the piss
or don't slip on the they have it's like a different brand of humor, I guess,
Yeah.
A
Joey
different brand
telling
of
his
lowbrow
piss
humor.
jokes.
Joey's
piss jokes on one of the recent shows.
Yeah, oh geez. But it's I just kind of slapped myself in the face after that reading the subreddit, and people are like, oh yeah, so apparently there is one more later to be released or later to be announced U.S. show. So I guess you said that you're thinking it's in California. Maybe you heard some rumblings about it. I heard, or I guess read on the subreddit somewhere that people are maybe suspecting that Red Rocks could be in the picture for that. Which that could be an option.
That is a really, you know what? If that's the case, I mean, that's possible. And it would probably if it's just a one-off, I'm sure it will be like a 3-hour marathon show.
Yeah.
And if that's the case, instead of Field of Vision, I'm thinking I fly out to Red Rocks if they play there, man, because that's like a bucket list venue. And if there's any artist I want to see there, it's them. So, okay. All right. Maybe. We'll see. Maybe.
Oh my God. So yeah, lots happened obviously in 2025 and lots to look forward to in 2026. I also want to provide a quick footnote here for all of those rave and rock shows. We got so many awesome debuts. I'm not going to list all of them because I did touch on them quite a bit in my solo minisode some time ago. But as far as the numbers, overall debuts, 13 songs debuted live for the first time by the band in 2025, and also 11 electronic debuts, and that's to say songs that the band have performed live before but not in an electronic format. So just they're continuing to show that versatility, the creativity, jamming on Nathan instead of on their more traditional rock instruments. And sure enough, like we predicted ahead of this tour, I think, that they're going to go in so many crazy different creative directions that we will not expect, and they did just that. And then another tiny footnote also, on December the 2nd, I know there was a lot of immediate buzz that quickly died down, actually, from what I experienced. Mango Sticky Rice was an album or project, whatever you want to call it, that dropped on the Bootleg Gizzard streaming profile. And it basically came with an explanation from Stu that essentially entailed that he worked on it all on his own, and it was kind of a generative thing, and he specified not generative like generative AI, but generative in a sense that this Eurorack apparatus that the band makes all this electronic music on, that he kind of gives it a prompt and basically just lets the machine kind of go with the flow and do what it will.
Yeah.
So I don't know if you had the chance to listen much, if at all, to that Mango Sticky Rice yet, Joe, but it's basically, for those who haven't yet, the tracks are all called Mango Sticky Rice, but with the suffix of a Roman numeral numbering 7 through 12 for the 6 tracks. And my first thought on that was, okay, so that would imply then the existence of Mango Sticky Rices 1 through 6, right?
Yeah.
And
yeah,
so,
what's the deal?
What's the deal with Mango Sticky Rice?
What's the deal?
So that has me wondering if that project is maybe something that will eventually lead into the eventual techno album that is actually starting to gain a little more credence and a little more substance rather than just a unsubstantiated rumor. Or this could just be its total one-off project from Stu that he just felt like making and happened to be eating a lot of, the titular mango sticky rice during this time, and maybe something totally unrelated in the end to the techno album to come.
Yeah, I honestly, I don't really know. I think it might have just been a fun little project of Stu was messing around and he was like, all right, this might not be like an official Giz album, but let's just throw it out there just for the people to have something, just to listen to something that I've been playing around with. I think it's really nothing more than that. But maybe it could be a little hint of what's to come. Maybe something a little more collaborative between all the band members doing this sort of thing. Something a little more written out, a little more meticulously put together than just this sort of generative synth thing. But yeah, I think it's interesting. I listened to a little bit of it. I don't think I listened to the whole thing. I sort of started to the day it dropped just to see what it was about, and I honestly kind of forgot about it, and I feel bad about that. I want to go back and check out the rest of it. But it's this sort of... I've seen people kind of comparing it to like Aphex Twin a little bit, like this sort of soft electronic, trancey kind of music where like it'll just kind of do one thing for a long time and very slowly change the melody and the instruments and the sound a little bit, like slowly over time. But all of the tracks kind of are like this constant flowing thing, and it's interesting. I definitely have to revisit it, but if you haven't heard it, go take a listen and come up with some conclusions yourself, what you think it sounds like, or what it all means, what it might be hinting at for the future.
Yeah, and the 6 tracks, by the way, they're 15 minutes long each, and so it's a long project, and the chill nature of it and the fact that it doesn't really have any jarring changes or anything, it's very nice background music. And so I put it on while I was taking inventory at work the other day. I think it might have been actually the day after it dropped on Bandcamp. I just put that on in the background, and normally inventory is this grubby, like odious job, but I put that on in the background. It put me in such a nice state of mind. Hell, I might even fall asleep to it on the plane coming up on my on my trip to see my folks this Christmas.
That's not a bad application for that. It's like chill Giz beats to study and relax or sleep on a plane too.
Yeah.
So yeah, it could be really good for certain things like that. That's how I could see myself listening to it. So with that Giz 2025 timeline out of the way, Spencer, you hinted at the number of debuted songs that we've had this year, both just general overall debuts and also electronic debuts of songs they've previously played, but now transformed into the rave synth version. So we're just going to go down that list of all of them. There's some really exciting stuff in here, a whole lot of debuts. Like you said already, 13 brand new songs that they've never played live before they debuted, and 11 electronic debuts of those synth versions of older songs. So starting out with the overall debuts, I had to put this one right at the top of the list, the Crumbling Castle outro. They had never done the long extended outro part of that song. It normally just ends live right before that. But when we saw them live on July 28th, 2025, at the Philly Orchestral Show, they did this full outro, Cavs on the drums, and all the other band members stopped, and the orchestra was just blaring the horns and the strings, and it just built and built and built and got more intense as it went on. And I've talked about this extensively, actually, in our last Polygon Dwanaland discussion. I talked about how this just was melting my face off and was probably my favorite moment of that whole show.
Oh, it was beautiful indeed, yeah. I'm glad you thought to add that one to the list because that is vital, because you and I know countless others were just ecstatic to hear that outro finally get the live treatment, because in previous performances, the band had never played that outro portion for whatever reason. Good to finally hear that one. Speaking of outros, though, the Flamethrower outro actually got a debut. That happened on May 30th when they were on the European residency. Just sort of that oddball, like hybrid kind of synthesizer and metal feel. I full disclosure, I actually haven't gone back and listened to that one myself, but I know that was obviously a vital development in showing the band was kind of ready to stretch its legs. so to speak, in 2025. And but more to follow. But really cool that that 2 outros were amongst these awesome debuts.
Yeah, and also I apologize. I'm just noticing now that you had written up the majority of this list, except for my edition of the Crumbling Castle outro, and I didn't realize you had all these in chronological order of when they debuted, and I just sort of slapped the Crumbling Castle outro note right on the very top. That wasn't till July 28th, which was the first orchestra show in the U.S., but the rest of this, I guess, from now on will be in in chronological order. So the Flamethrower outro was actually the first debut of the year, I guess, the first part of a song that had never been played before. But anyway, following that, on June 6th, we got Superposition. Oh my god, I can't believe that had never been played live before until then. That is crazy, but I love that song. I'm assuming, so this was also during the residency in Europe, right? But this was not exactly the rave tour yet, but they were still doing the Nathan segments of the show. So I imagine that's where this one came up, if I'm remembering correctly. So that's really awesome to get that. I love that song. And also a couple days later, on June 9th, they did Smoke and Mirrors. That's another big one. I can't believe they never did that before. That one's slightly more recent than Superposition, but that's really cool as well. Then there's quite a jump in time after that, all the way to October. Now we're in the actual rave tour part of the year now. This was on October 24th. There was a debut of a never-before-heard track written on their set list under the title Joe Jam. That's all caps, Jojam. Now, I'm assuming that this is like maybe an unfinished song, or an untitled song at least, that maybe Joey came up with, and that's why it's called Joe Jam. It's like his own little synth jam that they're kind of working into a fuller song. And I'm just, because of this, I'm going to jump ahead a little bit in the timeline to say that there was another one of these sort of unreleased song jams that were done, and it wasn't just like an improvised jam, because it was actually on their set list. People get their hands on the set lists after the shows, and this one was called Lusek, I guess is how you would pronounce it, also in all capital letters, Luseq, and that was on Halloween, actually, on 10/31. I think that was that London that they played on Halloween?
I think,
if I'm remembering correctly.
Manchester,
that's right. Okay, I knew it was somewhere in England. So, but yeah, so there were these 2 sort of electronic song debuts, these songs that have never been heard before. So I remember listening to them, and I don't think there were any lyrics or anything, right? They were just sort of these synth jams, and I remember thinking they sounded cool. I can't really remember what they sounded like off the top of my head. I'd have to revisit, but yeah, I think they might be little hints of what may be to come in the future.
Yeah, it could be something included on the techno album eventually, or just might become like a sort of mainstay at live shows only, perhaps. Who's to say? But I did touch on those 2 extended electronic jams briefly on my solo mini-sode. Luseq, by the way, I and I think a couple other people have theorized that might be short for Lucas Sequence. It might have been something that Lucas kind of took the lead on, compared to Joe Jam being more of a Joey vehicle. But anyway, those, whether they become part of an eventual album or they kind of stay in the live context, it is notable that even though they were given their own listing on the set list for those nights' shows, they, on the bootlegs, once those got dropped onto the listening platforms, they don't have their own tracks. They're actually incorporated into whatever track precedes it or succeeds it, actually. So you won't see either of those actually listed on the track listing for the bootlegs. I don't know what that means ultimately, but just a little interesting footnote, I guess. Moving along to some of the other overall debuts the band hit on during this part of the tour. Late October also brought us 3 Butterfly 3000 songs, and we talked about this quite a bit, actually, in the lead-up, Joe, that we wanted to hear some Butterfly. It was time.
Yes.
It was beyond time to bust some of these out, and sure enough, the same night that the band performed that Joe Jam, for the first time ever, 2.02 Killer Year, Blue Morpho, and the title track, Butterfly 3000. So boom, they finally kind of opened Pandora's box there, and the crowd loved it. They sounded great. Hell's Itch, another notable debut that happened on that Halloween show where we heard Luseq. So At Hell's Itch was actually, I believe, a shortened version of it, which, I mean, practically everything on Ice Death is going to need to be a shortened version if you're not going to try and hog up too much time on the live show, because every song on that album is like 10 minutes plus practically. So good that the band busted that one out, and then just to kind of wrap up the Butterfly 3000 section of things, the next item down the list is the debut of Dreams, November the 2nd. So they've really kind of run roughshod starting through Butterfly 3000 at long last.
Yes, I was so excited to hear this. Finally, that album getting the live love it deserved. They finally figured it out, finally busted them out on these rave shows as I hoped. A couple of those in particular, like Dreams and Blue Morpho, I thought would be really cool to hear live. Still no Catching Smoke, but I don't know. There's time. Mm-hmm. Maybe they'll work on that one and play it in New York for us when we're there at that rave show.
One can hope.
Oh man, that's still the number one like sort of electronic debut I'm waiting for. But speaking of songs that we got at long last, oh my god, they played Fishing for Fishies. I can't fucking believe it. They've never played this song live. People have been clamoring for it, especially the two of us, with that being the album that got both of us into this band. And oh my god, finally they did it. Now, it was obviously a weird synth electronic version of it, but it sounded cool as hell, and I couldn't believe my eyes when I saw that pop up. I wasn't watching the live stream at the time, so it wasn't like an all of a sudden like holy shit moment. I actually saw a YouTube video come up, or one of us, I think you might have even sent it to me, but I remember it popping up and seeing, oh my god, they played Fishies, and being so excited to pull that up. I think I was at the gym actually going through a bunch of songs from the, just sort of looking at the live streams and then going on YouTube and finding those moments. And, oh man, they finally did it. Still hoping for a regular rock version of it, but hey, it's better than nothing. I'll take it.
Totally, yeah. My wife and I were actually on vacation at the time, and I think we had just finished dinner or something, and I got a push notification on my phone. Happened to glance at my phone, and I saw Fishing for Fishies debut, and I'm just like, as I'm sitting there calmly at the table, we're enjoying time together, but in my mind, I'm like, what? So, and of course, I had to share it with you. So, yeah, so cool to have it just in some form. I actually was cranking this in my car driving home from work yesterday, and the extended jam that kind of emanates from that version of Fishing for Fishies is so cool, so energetic, and I will grant that Stu was having some trouble hitting some of those higher notes, and I kind of get now that it's a little bit out of his range. They might have to tune it down a half step or something if they're going to eventually perform it in the traditional kind of rock boogie sense, but was good to hear it. It was great to hear it, and you know, it's this whole tour was just like a big revelation of, okay, they're going to kind of, if you're going to be dramatic about it, exercise some old demons, or they're going to like, they're going to start busting some more songs out, and a lot more cards are on the table now than before.
All right, so rounding out our overall debut list with our final two debuts, first of which was Candles on 11/11. Man, that was so exciting. I love that song. We talked about it on our Omnium Gatherum episode and how we feel like it's a little bit of an underappreciated track, but there is some real love out there for it from some people, and I saw a lot of excitement about it, which is great, and I thought it sounded awesome. I love that song. And the final overall debut being Nobody on November 15th, another exciting one as well that I'm surprised has never been played live. So that's it for our overall debut list. 13 songs that have never been played before. Really exciting stuff. And how about we move forward and talk about some of the songs that were transformed and debuted on the synth table, even though they had been played rock style before.
Yeah, man. 11 electronic debuts, like I mentioned earlier. The first of which was Slow Jam 1 on May 29th during the European residency. Just going to say right now, this is in contention for me for one of the best kind of translated from rock over to electronic songs that the band has now performed live. There's just something so bone-chilling and hair-raising in a beautiful way. It's like that meme, you know, when the music gets really good and it's like a close-up on the person's forearm and the hairs are standing on end. That's what Slow Jam 1 on the table does for me, dude. It's just like that slow kind of melancholy or bittersweet ballad that for some reason just translates so well, and I love it a lot. Little oddball deep cut Down the Sink a couple of days later off Gumboot Soup. The Cookie Vehicle, a nice little throw into the set list for that one. And already with those couple of electronic debuts, that was kind of the first hint to us that we really had no idea what we were going to see the band play, translating from rock instrumentation to electronic.
Moving on to another absolute classic, an old crowd favorite. They did an electronic version of Hot Water on June 9th. That was super fun to hear. And on that same day, actually, they debuted an electronic version of Sense from Paper Mache Dream Balloon, and that was super cool. I was excited to see this song and just that album in general get some love, and it was really interesting to see it transformed this way. But overall, I feel like we talked about this before, but it just, I don't know, it doesn't translate the best. I don't love the electronic version of it. All of them are exciting. Like, it's cool to see them try different stuff, and I'm down for whatever, them trying new things. But, some work better than others. Some of them are really awesome, and some of them are just kind of, it's okay, but I'd rather hear this just on guitar or something, the more traditional kind of way that you expect it to sound.
Yeah, and even though the band is really sort of coming into their own with these electronic shows now, there's still a sense, if you'll pardon the pun, there's still a sense that there's like an experimentalism about these still, and I say that in the most positive of ways. Like, the band is just kind of taking these waves and riding them. They know probably that some of these songs aren't going to hit as strongly as they do in their original forms, and that's okay. They may live and learn from that, or they may try to tweak them a little bit to improve them, but they also, I think, are keenly aware as well, on the flip side, that there are songs that are going to be absolute bangers translated over to the table.
Right.
Like I said, Slow Jam 1 being one of them. The next couple of electronic debuts here on the list: Murder of the Universe, very appropriately on Halloween in Manchester. Anything off Murder of the Universe is going to be perfect for Halloween.
Yes.
And then Magma the following night on November the 1st. So a couple of the longer form, or I guess in the case of Magma, longer form song, and Murder of the Universe, they're basically hitting on all like subgenres from their own history, like all albums practically from their history, and giving them the Nathan treatment.
Yeah, and following Magma, we got another debut from that very same album, Ice 5, on November 6th. That was one that I saw people really buzzing about and loving, that version of Ice 5. People in general love that song. It's a really fun one to get to hear live. And on that very same day, two more from that same show, The Bitter Boogie and Muddy Water, also on November the 6th. Now, these two songs, I feel like for the past year or two, if they play one of them, they play the other, and they kind of blend them together into the Bitter Water or the Muddy Boogie or whatever you want to call whatever their ship name is of those two songs together. But they sort of just flow between them seamlessly and sort of mash them up in a really cool way. In particular, though, this part of Muddy Water from this show goes hard as fuck. Like, it is just so good. This is just one I never would have expected, but just that beat and the main riff of the that on a synth with just this bouncing constant kick drum and everybody just jumping up and down to it was crazy. I remember pulling that up on a Bluetooth speaker and listening back to that one after seeing a short clip of it. I went back and listened to the whole thing, and oh my God, it goes hard as hell. Just definitely one of my favorite electronic versions of a song. That Muddy Water version was awesome.
I really feel bad for not having listened to that one. That was from the same Tilburg show, those few tracks that we just mentioned, Ice 5, Bitter Boogie, Muddy Water, same Tilburg show where Fishing for Fishies was performed. And that's really, I think, a standout date on that leg of the tour, the Tilburg show.
Damn, if I could go back in time, that's the one I would have gone to, because holy shit, that set list.
I think I'm with you, yeah. And unfortunately, I was listening to the Fishing for Fishies performance from that show driving home from work yesterday, and I think I skipped past Muddy Water, actually. Now I'm really regretting that, so I gotta go back.
If you haven't heard it, go back and listen to Muddy Water. They jammed on it for quite a while, but once it really like pops off and gets going, it was living up to the term rave, like just absolute banger.
Oh God, this band is just the epitome of like choice paralysis, decision paralysis. Like, what do I want to listen to? What flavor do I want on this particular evening or afternoon? Okay, well, I know what's next.
Oh, hey, you got that long flight coming up, like you said, right?
Yeah.
You got a long flight coming up. Plenty of time to get through all of these as you make your way across the country.
I've got my homework cut out for me, yep. And then finally, 2 more electronic debuts. Perihelion on November the 10th. We were kind of wondering what metal songs that the band would translate over onto the table. Perihelion was one of them. It's one of the, of course, very riff-oriented metal songs for the band. And then Dirt on December the 4th. That was the final electronic debut of the tour. Didn't get the chance to listen to that one either, and I'll just add that one to the list during my upcoming flight. Got a lot of music to download, man.
Yeah, Perihelion was cool. I was actually surprised we didn't get more electronic versions of the metal songs. There haven't been
honestly,
huge amount of them, but that's one of them. And Dirt was really cool. I was actually listening live to that live stream at work because it was like morning time for us. And I think that was one of the Australia shows, one of the last few of the tour. So, it was like nighttime for them the next day or whatever. And I don't know, the time difference between here and Australia is insane. I don't remember off the top of my head, but it was like morning time at work for me. And I put that on, and there was a couple great songs that I remember hearing from that live stream, but Dirt in particular really like made me happy to hear, man. I love when Paper Mache comes back up and gets some love. I love that album. So that wraps up our segment there as far as our Giz timeline of the year and the new song debuts. As we said, we do have some more listener messages to read, in particular relating to some listeners and people out there's favorite moments of the year. So we're going to go through some of those now. I'm going to start off with one from Blue Sky, our friend Quetzalcoatlus Wellness Institute. Once again, you could probably hear me kind of struggling through that, but I think we agreed we're just going to refer to them as Quetzal from now on. So Quetzal once again responded to us, and we do appreciate your interactions and reaching out to us with all this stuff. They said, so many highlights. Jello doing Police Truck was awesome. Relief when they said see you next year to the crowd at FOV. Was a bit worried they might have a break next year after Phantom Island album lyrics. Yeah, you kind of touched on that earlier. There's like sort of hints in there like they're going to take a break for a while or something. For me and more on December 5th with the openers, and I was there with bros and nephew. Went to all 4 Sydney gigs. Nice. I'm guessing maybe you're an Australian native or you just traveled out there for it, but either way, that is awesome. You got to go to all those shows in Sydney. And you mentioned Jello doing Police Truck. That was at Field of Vision, right?
Yeah.
I forget which night, but Jello Biafra is the singer of that punk band, the Dead Kennedys, for anyone that doesn't know. I don't really know their music particularly well, but I sort of did a little research looking up who he was, and I know I'd heard his name before as well and heard of that band. So I'm not much of a real knowledgeable when it comes to punk and stuff, but I know that was really cool and exciting for a lot of people to see his appearance on stage with them, so that was cool.
Yeah, really cool experience, definitely, and I know Jello is a guy that Stu and or the rest of the band has looked up to for many years. That had to have been just an amazing experience for them. I'd never heard the song Police Truck before. In fact, like you, I'm not really deeply immersed into punk at all, but I actually listened to that song for the first time yesterday, both in its original form by Dead Kennedys and the Field of Vision performance. Really cool. It's a fun, bouncy, rockin' track worth listening to. Thank you, Quetzal, as always, for the input. King Shrimpo and the Nonagon Wizard, also on Blue Sky, writes in saying, I joined the Swarm in April this year, and I think that was the best memory, being part of such a wonderful, welcoming, and diverse community. King Gizzard changed my life in an amazing way, and I don't think I'd find any community better than the Weirdo Swarm. Well, King Shrimpo, welcome to the Weirdo Swarm. Curious if you feel like writing back in at any point, like what exactly hooked you? Like, was it a specific song or an album, or did a friend kind of help show you the way, or were they in your algorithm on the platform where you listen to music? Let us know.
Yeah, and it sounds like you just got into them in April of this year, and you're already in deep with a name like King Shrimpo and the Nonagon Wizard. Like, you are just, there's no going back, my friend.
They've been ruined.
Our next one off Blue Sky comes from Moth, who said, the Magma Synth premiere in London has got to be the best KGLW moment in general. Yeah, I know that was a big one for a lot of people. Magma on the synth was kick-ass. It translates so nicely, sounds great, and I'm glad you enjoyed that. That is a big one for sure. And then our final one off of Blue Sky was from Attendance Bias Podcast, who said, their rock and roll show at Forest Hills Stadium. Can't wait for their return next summer. That's right, and we were there, of course, as we mentioned. We've talked about it multiple times. We went up for that show specifically, the rock and roll night at Forest Hills, and we'll be back next year, at least for the rave show, but like I said, I might try to get up there the night before for the rock show too. So, yep, super hyped for that.
Mm-hmm. And I think... Attendance Bias Podcast. I looked at that profile real quick. I guess it's a fish-oriented show, and that's a band that I actually intend to explore a little bit in the days and months to come. So they evidently know their jam band stuff. So they know what's up. Our final listener comment comes via Instagram from MindFuzz Music, who says, personally thought the Colorado Springs Symphony show was one of the best concert experiences of my life. The band was locked in, the energy was high, and the venue was absolutely beautiful. Couldn't ask for more. Field of Vision was obviously a highlight of the year for a lot of us, but Night 2 in particular was a killer show. Came out hot right out of the gates and never let up. Favorite jam from the weekend was Her and I from Night 3. Woo, fellow Her and I stand, yeah. Also highlighted some of my favorite jams from the summer on my bootleg Giz Trips Volume 1, link in my bio. So if you're interested in checking that out on Instagram, go to mindfuzz_music's profile. You can check that out. And so, yeah, those are all of our listener comments. Joe, just such a fun wrap-up for the year 2025, but we're not quite done yet. We have another little thing in store for this episode.
That's right, yeah, so that wraps up all of the Giz-specific recap of the year, the whole timeline and your thoughts on your favorite moments of the year. But now we're going to jump into a little thing that we did last year where we give our end of the year wrap of what we listened to the most throughout this year. Now, I'm sure you're all familiar with the Spotify Wrapped. I think they were kind of the first platform to do this, and over the years, other platforms have followed suit, where usually in, early mid-December, they'll give you sort of this recap of, okay, here's what you listened to the most this year, your favorite artists, favorite songs, etc., etc., and so we're going to share those with you because there's lots of Giz in there, of course. I know there's going to be, as usual. But on top of that, it's just fun to share other stuff that we've been enjoying. Then maybe you'll hear us talk about something you've never heard before, and you might end up liking that too. So, or maybe you'll hear us talk about some other band that you're also a fan of. Who knows? So we're going to get into that right now. Spencer, do you want to kick us off?
Yeah, so I want to start with this, Joe. Obviously, we're familiar with what's going on Spotify right now, with Spotify CEO using a lot of the profits from the company going toward AI military drone technology, and King Gizzard famously pulled their music off the platform kind of when that came to light, and they're like, we're not cool with that. We don't want to be any part of this, so we're gone. We're off Spotify.
Yeah, that was in July, right? This past summer when they pulled their music. Yeah, I believe that was in July.
Mm-hmm. So they pulled their music, and of course everybody in the Weirdo Swarm kind of scrambled to find another platform. And obviously the disclaimer here is, and the disadvantage here, I guess, is that with all these big corporations that have all these music platforms, unfortunately nothing is perfect. There's unfortunately always going to be something shady behind the scenes, but it's kind of a, just move on to the next best thing with the options you're given. Fortunately for those of you who do have physical media like vinyls, or in a couple of cases CDs of a couple of the band's albums. They don't make many of those, but that's kind of the ultimate way to go if you're able to. But in my case, I moved over to Tidal eventually after that announcement was made, and that's where I listen to my music now. But that being said, Joe, we did kind of want to give some of our Spotify stats, because we did take a quick look at our Wrapped before kind of migrating off that platform, because there is kind of still some interesting breakdowns and fun looks back at the year that was in listening.
Yeah, we were still using the platform for half the year up until the band pulling their music from it, so there's still a lot of stats and details in there that could be fun to go over. Hey everybody, Joe here, cutting in for just a quick second because I went on this long extended anecdote for about 2 minutes where I describe the fact that I just recently finally got off of Spotify because I was relying on it to listen to my favorite podcasts for a while, but I ended up finding new resources and places that I could listen to those same shows and cancel my Spotify. So that's basically like a little TLDR for you so that I could cut out a couple minutes of me rambling. So there you go. Anyway, back to the show. And also on top of that, right before I canceled, there was this news coming out about this like AI version of King Gizzard on the platform with like these shitty AI covers basically of their songs. Just like absolutely horrendous dog shit. Like I hate. I'm very anti-AI, and I'm sure it has good applications for some things and whatever, but when it comes to any form of art, like, it just does not fucking belong. Art is human. Fuck those robots. Just robot stop. Stay away from our art.
Fuck that robot slop.
Yeah, let's. I don't want any of that robot slop. Stop with the robot slop. It sucks. So yeah, that was definitely like a final straw for me, and I'm happy to be off the platform now. So anyway, that's just sort of my backstory of my experience with the Spotify platform. So we're going to give our Spotify stats for the time that we used it, and then our stats from the new platforms that we have moved on to.
All right, so I'm just going to kind of hit on a mishmash of stats that I got from Spotify Wrapped from the time that I was using it to listen to music still. I apparently listened to 266 different genres of music. I didn't know that many genres existed, first of all, but according to that data, my top genres were alternative rock, neo-psychedelic, indie folk, jam band, and electronic. Of course, the latter of which we know where that came from. My listening age that the platform generated for me, are you ready? 66. Yes, I'm an old soul. I've been hearing it all my fucking life. And the little description beneath it was, since you were into music from the late 70s, you're an old soul. I'm like, yeah, I know.
Yeah.
Because I listen to Van Halen, Scorpions, Rush, Pink Floyd, all kinds of stuff from the 70s and into the 80s. So this was no surprise. I mean, my wife has said that I have the musical habits of a 60, 65-year-old man. So, this is all just kind of same song and dance for me. No surprises whatsoever.
Now, Spencer, you listen to 266 genres, and you might think that's a lot, but actually, I have you beat. I listen to 359.
What the hell?
Yes, finally.
I guess kind of does make sense. You listen to other genres of music that I don't.
Yeah, probably. I have a little bit of mix of like, some like rap and stuff in there as well that you might not be into as much, or I don't know, whatever other kinds of weird shit that I listen to. But I've got you beat there. And, I bet at least half of those genres are just Giz, like just different Giz albums.
Okay. I want you to guess what my number one song was that I listened to.
Okay, you know what? I think it was Dead Stick.
Bingo, we have a winner.
Yo, yes. Let's go.
It was Dead Stick. I could not put that song down, dude.
Okay, yeah, I was guessing because I just feel like we've talked about a lot how much you loved it, and I'm sure you just listened to that album a lot this year. But also, guess what my number one song was?
Dead Stick.
Yes, it was Dead Stick also.
Of course it was.
Can you believe it? Wow. Yeah, Dead Stick was my top song. I guess that's the one I just kept going back to the most from that album, and I probably listened to it a whole shitload when it first came out as a single. So yeah.
Yeah, I think I'll be taking a break from that song in the days to come because I will be getting on a plane, as I mentioned, and between that and a couple of the Flight B741 songs, I might steer clear of some of those while I'm on the flight, being the nervous flyer that I am. But all jokes aside, yeah, just such an infectious track. I'm glad that so many people got as much joy out of it as we have. And then to run down the rest of my top 5 songs, number 2 was actually from the very same album, Grow Wings and Fly, which surprised me a little bit because I didn't realize I had listened to that one nearly as much. Followed by a Radiohead song, Everything in Its Right Place. I think I mentioned it in passing on our Most of What We Like segment at one point. The Radiohead went back out on tour this year, and in fact, they actually just concluded their tour over in Europe. And Everything in Its Right Place, that menacing synth melody that opens the album Kid A, just that incredible album where they kind of shifted their overall feel and sound, kind of went electronic. That was my number 3 track of the year. Aerodynamic was number 4, which shocked me even more. I did not realize, even of all the tracks on Phantom Island, I thought there were others that I had listened to more than Aerodynamic, but okay. And then for number 5, back to that same album, Kid A, How to Disappear Completely. It's just this melancholy, like deeply emotional, like being in a state of denial and deep anxiety. And I don't often go to a place like that, but when I'm having a rough day, that is such a beautiful, moving song to go to kind of shut out the world for a little bit.
Right.
I guess I listened to a shit ton of Radiohead. I actually remember when we were still working together, I said, I was listening to Radiohead on the way into work this morning, and you said, oh, you doing okay, man? You all right?
Yeah, you okay?
Because, of course, that band has the reputation of, it's sad bastard music. But, hey, I fell back in love with them this year.
Yeah, that's cool. Okay, so your top 5 was 2 Radiohead and 3 Phantom Island songs?
Yep.
Wow, okay. I actually did not have any other Phantom Island tracks in my top 5, and only one of them was another Giz song. And so I said, Dead Stick was my number 1 as well, right along with you. And for my number 2, another Giz album that I could just never seem to put down year after year, but it was Gila Monster from Petro. Just not Witchcraft this time. Witchcraft was my number 1 song last year, actually. I was listening to a shitload of Petro last year for whatever reason, but I guess I still was this year. But Gila took the number 2 spot on my songs list here. Then the rest are all non-Giz songs, 3 different artists actually, and ones that kind of seemed interesting to me because I don't feel like I listened to them that much, but I guess, or at least for 1 or 2 of them. But number 3 is a song called The Title Track by a band called Origami Angel. This was a song that I saw a reference to on another podcast that I listened to, and it just sounded interesting hearing a little clip of it. And so I sought it out and listened to it, and wouldn't you know, it's a great banger of a song. The actually entire album that this is from is really cool, and it's just this interesting, cool kind of pop-punky, fast, alt-rock song. I don't even know how to describe it. It's weird, but it's got a lot of energy, really fun track. Then my number 4 is a weird one. 96 Quite Bitter Beings by CKY. I don't know where that came from. I don't feel like I listened to it that much. I had a little moment where it came up on a playlist or something and I hadn't heard that song in forever, and I guess I kept listening to it a few times, and that was enough to put it in my top 5, I guess. So that was an interesting one. And then my number 5, totally different genre, Cheerleader by Porter Robinson. Porter is a great electronic artist who I've been a fan of for years, and his most recent album, I think it came out last year, and this song Cheerleader was the leading single from it, and it's really fun, great energy, great melody, fun to sing along to, just really awesome stuff. He's one of the best, one of my favorites when it comes to just high energy, fun, electronic, EDM, whatever you want to call it kind of stuff. So really cool song there. So that's my top 5 songs. How about, should we get into top 5 albums or artists or one of those others?
Yeah, I'll hit on my top 5 albums real quick. Number 1, unsurprisingly, Radiohead's Kid A. As I mentioned, those couple of songs off that album made it to my top 5 songs. Followed by Amnesiac, which a lot of people kind of regard as Kid A's slightly lesser younger brother. It was actually released 6 or 7 months afterwards, and a lot of the songs came from the same recording sessions. And it shares some similarities to Kid A, a lot of weird electronica, but also some very cool, classic Radiohead sounding grooves as well. So that was my number 2. Number 3 was Muse's Simulation Theory, which is a very synth-laden rock anthem-filled album from 2018. Kind of gets a bad rap from a lot of people for some reason, but I really like it. It's made for these huge venues, big stadium concerts that Muse have played over the years. Number 4 is the Murlocs' Calm Ya Farm. I cranked that one a lot, largely because of a couple of songs off it that I love in particular. I love the opening track, Initiative. It sounds like something that would be on in a Texas bar, something you would square dance to or something. And then also the songs Superstitious Insights and Forbidden Toad, kind of a bluesy number with harmonica, the former, and then the latter is this very swampy instrumental track. So that was my number 4, Calm Ya Farm, and really hoping for some Murlocs in the future, by the way.
Yeah, I think I listened to that album a lot last year. I don't know if it was one of my tops, but it should have been, because I had a period of time where I couldn't put that one down.
It's so good, yeah. And then a big shocker for me, Muse's The Second Law, was number 5. I know part of where this came from. I have mentioned the podcast that I started listening to this year called What is Music, where 3 friends from the UK discuss a new artist or band every season of the show, and they kind of do what we do. They kind of blend musical analysis and humor and jokes, and it's always a good time. They did a season on Muse and a season on Radiohead, so, I mean, put 2 and 2 together there. I consumed a lot of both those bands' music. I don't remember particularly loving the Second Law that much, but maybe I just kind of went into nerd mode and reviewed the music so much on that album that it weaseled its way into my top 5. So
yeah,
there you have it. How about your top 5 albums?
Okay, so as far as my top albums, they are all over the place in genre, and I just wanted to point out that neither of our top albums are Giz at all, and I think that might have to do with them pulling their stuff from the platform.
Absolutely.
Obviously, you still we were still able to see that Dead Stick was our number 1 song, and you had a couple others in your top songs as well. But yeah, as far as albums, and I don't know about you, but they're not in my top artists either.
Yeah, no, looking back, they were actually not in my top artists either. Yeah, it's really weird because even though those hot singles that kind of hot singles in your area on your music platform that made it into our top 5, it's really weird that Giz didn't make it into our top 5 artists like you were getting at, but I guess that was kind of the flip side of the migration.
Yeah, that's got to be just a part of them being taking their stuff off the platform. But anyway, so going through my top albums, my number 1 was Mountain Head, which is the album that came out early last year from the band Everything Everything. I think they were in my top last year as well. That specific album might have been, or at least 1 or 2 of the singles from it. They're my other favorite band. Absolutely amazing music. I have some really great memories of the first time I heard that album, and I guess I just happened to revisit it quite a bit this year. So that's the first one. Number 2 is GNX by Kendrick Lamar. I don't really feel like I listen to this album that much, but I've always been a big fan of Kendrick, and this one I don't love as much as his previous work, but there are some fun songs on there that I guess for certain applications and certain moods I wanted to put on maybe at the gym or work or something like that to keep me going. So that was, and I believe that came out right around the beginning of this year or end of last year, if I remember correctly. Then another new album, another rap album, Let God Sort 'Em Out by Clips. Clips is a rap duo of 2 brothers. Pusha T and Malice are the 2 of them. They're 2 stage names. Pusha T is really popular. He's worked with a lot of other big names like Kendrick Lamar and many others, but they came back as a duo for the first time in many years and released a new album together. Then I also had another Kendrick Lamar album, Mr. Morale. That was his album that came out in 2022. There was actually one of my favorite podcasts, Dissect, where they every season do a different album and spend 1 episode on every single song, breaking it down. It's really fantastic, and he's done a lot of Kendrick Lamar albums, and so I think I was just going back and listening to that album a lot while listening to the season of that podcast on that album. And then my final one to go totally flip into a different genre, Sacrament by Lamb of God. This is one of my favorite metal bands of all time. I love Lamb of God. I saw them live in high school. I've been listening to them for a long time. And I guess Sacrament was the one I listened to the most. I think that album came out in 2006, I want to say. So it's pretty old. But there is some just kick-ass, gnarly, heavy shit on there that I especially love at the gym, and definitely helps me get through work days sometimes, too, when I'm just trying to be fast and get stuff done. I need that energy. So, love Lamb of God. And you know what, Spencer, if you don't mind, I'm just going to use that to transition right into my top artists, because they were one of my top artists as well. They weren't number 1, though. They were number 2. Number 1 was that band Everything Everything that I mentioned. So they took both the top artist and top album spot. Then, like I said, Lamb of God, number 2. Kendrick Lamar, number 3. As you could tell by my top albums, I was listening to him quite a bit this year. Then number 4 spot was taken by Ween, and they were in my top 5 last year as well. I love Ween, sort of the rock duo, sort of goofy, weird comedic moments in a lot of their songs, and some more genuine, serious sounding songs here and there, but they are just like nobody else, and they actually hail from the fine town of New Hope, Pennsylvania, which is very close to the area that Spencer and I live in. And my number 5 artist was System of a Down, who I listened to a lot this year. I'm actually shocked that they weren't higher on the list because I finally got to see that band live this summer in New York. It was so exciting, so magical after all these years. I've been listening to them since I was a kid. My sister got me into them from a young age, and they've always been a special band to me. So all the hype for getting to finally see them live had me listening to them so much and put them back in my top 5 artists. So that's my top 5. I love how all over the place mine is with genre. We got rap and alt rock and straight up metal and, new metal rock and all this shit just all over the place. I love it. How about yours, Spencer? What are your top 5 artists of the year, or at least on Spotify?
Well, if you'll pardon the Radiohead pun here, no surprises. Radiohead was my top artist on the year. And in fact, I was actually a top 0.9% listener of the band on Spotify before I migrated off the platform for my music listening, followed by Muse, Van Halen, Weezer, and Rush. Several of my all-time favorite bands. None of those were particularly surprising to me either. And yeah, I just kind of make habits, I guess, about just kind of going through cycles of listening to those bands' back catalogs, and on, some types of days, sometimes types of weathers or moods or seasons, I'll crave like a particular album, and so I'll go to that, and it happens year after year. I just stick to my tried and true. Not to say I don't explore, because I do, and in fact, go back to last year's episode if you've never listened before. There was some really weird random shit that my algorithm fed me for last year.
Yeah, like poor little critter on the road. That was one of your tops last year when I was re-listening. I think the Knitters was one of your top artists.
Yes,
so yeah, there was some really weird shit in there.
That is right. Yep. And I remember a band, Kevin and the Bikes, kind of an indie band that my algorithm fed to me, and I liked one particular track, but that's about it. So yeah, those were my top 5. I apparently listened to 457 artists in total during my time on Spotify this year. So yeah, there you have it.
So that does it for all of our tops as far as our Spotify Wrapped with the time that we used it. So that'll be the last one forever, I guess. RIP Spotify. You are no more. You are dead to us. Real quick, though, just because this was also on Spotify, I wanted to give a thank you to Instagram user Alex Flora P, who shared on their Instagram story and tagged us that Podagon Infinity was their number 1 listened to podcast on Spotify of the year. And that's just so exciting. That's the only one of them that I've seen. And I'm just so honored to get that from anybody. So we are glad that you're enjoying the show, Alex. I don't know if this was the same Alex that reached out earlier. We feel like there's been a lot of Alexes. We keep seeing Alexes everywhere.
I don't know, actually. I have no idea.
Well, anywho, if we're your most listened to podcast, then I'm sure you're listening to this right now. So thank you, Alex, for listening to our show. And in particular, it says that they were listened for 854 minutes. So that sounds like a lot. I don't know if that's every episode we put out this year or what, but either way, thank you for listening, and thank you for sharing that with us.
Yeah, thank you so much, Alex. We really appreciate the support. It means a lot. All right, now moving on to our current listening platforms of choice. Joe and I have gone in different directions here, and so these breakdowns are probably going to have a little bit of variance between the two. I chose Tidal, as I mentioned earlier on this episode, and the breakdown and the stats are relatively minimal compared to Spotify and compared to probably a couple of the other music platforms. But I'm going to start with my top 10 albums of the year during my time on Tidal. And surprise, surprise, it consists of entirely albums by only 2 different bands. Are you ready?
Oh, wow. Wait, hold on. How could I possibly guess what those 2 are? I'm going to have to say it's King Giz and Radiohead. Am I right?
Bingo. Yep. See,
okay.
that's
you make it too easy.
I know. I make it way too easy. But in order, and of course, podcast prep actually had a big role in how these shook out. From number 1 down to 10, Polygon Dwanaland was my number 1 most listened album. I just haven't revisited it enough, so I needed to give it a lot of repeated listens ahead of kind of prepping for that episode. Number 2, Omnium Gatherum. Number 3, Float Along, Fill Your Lungs. Number 4, Radiohead's Amnesiac, which I mentioned a few minutes ago. Number 5, Radiohead's Kid A. Number 6, Radiohead's OK Computer. Number 7, Radiohead's The Bends. Number 8, Radiohead's In Rainbows. And back to Giz finally, number 9, Willoughby's Beach, which I kind of got the craving for, little beachy, upbeat sound. And then finally at number 10, Radiohead's Hail to the Thief, which even though I mentioned I was kind of listening along with the What Is Music podcast, Hail to the Thief is not an album I hold in particularly high regard, but apparently I gave it enough listens to get it into my top 10. I will say its opening track, 2 + 2 = 5, is a stone cold classic, so that probably played a role in that.
Okay, since you started off with your top 10 albums, I'll go with my albums as well. I have been using YouTube Music ever since Giz left Spotify, and so there's not a huge amount of data, I guess, that it could pull from because I only started in July, and I was still kind of using Spotify here and there for a couple months until I finally canceled it recently. But for the last few months, I've mostly been doing all my music on YouTube Music, and now I'm sticking with it for good. No more Spotify. So mine, it doesn't give a top 10, it's a top 5, but I'll go through those. My number 1 album was Inertia by Pendulum. Pendulum is this electronic rock mix, a drum and bass band from also from Australia, I believe. And they put out a new album this year for the first time in like over 10 years, maybe 15 years, something crazy like that. So that was really exciting. I was introduced to them probably in like middle school or high school. They're definitely a big like early 2000s, early 2010s was sort of their height of their popularity. But to see them come back with a new album after all these years was huge, and I love it. So I've been listening to that a lot. Then my number 2, really interesting one here, because I think I only listened to this all the way through once, but I think because of how long it is, it actually ended up as my number 2 album, Giz Live at Red Rocks 23, which was a 3-hour marathon. Or actually, no, it was, I think, 3 different shows, or two or 3 days of shows.
Actually, yeah, I think you're right.
Yeah, so that whole album listening experience is like 6 hours long or more than that. So I guess just because I listened to it all the way through once, spread out over a couple days, I'm sure, but because I listened to that all the way through once, it actually became my number 2 album with how long it is. But oh, it kicks ass. There's some great stuff on there.
Yeah.
Then the last 3, rounding it out, are all Giz studio albums. Number 3 is Omnium Gatherum, which is an album we covered in the last few months on the show. And so I guess I was just listening to that a whole lot. And there are certain tracks from that album that seem to autoplay a lot or come up on different playlists. Specifically, Kepler 22b comes up a lot. And so yeah, Omnium was number 3. Number 2, Mind Fuzz, which is interesting. I don't feel like I go back to Mind Fuzz super, super often. I'm surprised that, I'd be more expecting like maybe Polly, because I listened to that so much for our episode, or Petrodragonic, or like I was saying earlier, I listened to that album so much. But either way, I'll take it, Mind Fuzz. And then finally, number 5, Phantom Island. And you would think that the newest album would have gotten more play for me, but I think I listened to it a lot when it first came out, and then ever since switching to YouTube Music, just haven't as much, but it still made it to number 5. So mostly Giz for me on this platform.
Okay, now as far as my continued title stats, which I said are a little more minimal, I wanted to give my top 5 artists because it does give that countdown. Number 1, surprise, King Gizzard. Number 2, surprise, Radiohead. Number 3, surprise, Weezer. Number 4, surprise, Rush. Number 5, however, I don't know if I've mentioned them on the show before, but the band Camp, who have kind of elements of like indie country rock. They do some acoustic stuff. They actually incorporate the banjo quite a bit in a lot of their songs. Ooh. And kind of the best way I can describe a lot of their music is kind of upbeat coffee house vibes, or like you're going on a drive into the mountains for the weekend kind of vibes. They're just this like pastoral feeling kind of band, like a lot of good feels.
Sounds like something that would have been good for my drive into West Virginia a couple weekends ago.
Yeah, perfect for a scenario like that. So Camp, spelled with 2 A's, by the way, if you're not familiar with them, they are a Columbus, Ohio based band. They actually came through Philly over the summer. I didn't have the chance to go see them, but I've really grown to enjoy them over the past couple of years. They're also nice to just kind of, sit inside and drink a beer and enjoy. They're a band that'll put a smile on your face, and they'll make you feel some feels as well.
All right, nice. You'll have to send me some stuff of theirs. I don't think I've ever gotten the chance to listen to them.
Yeah, totally.
All right, my top 5 artists, surprise, surprise, number 1, Giz, followed by interestingly enough, bootleg Gizzard because of all of the damn live albums I've been listening to this year. With all the new shows, there's been some quick turnaround here and there of, after a show, a month or so later having the live album available to listen to. So I've been going and listening through a lot of the live albums of shows that I wasn't at and wasn't able to listen to during the live stream. So Bootleg Gizzard comes in at number 2. Then rounding out the top 5, we have Pendulum. Like I mentioned, they put out their first album in many years this year that I listened to a ton. Number 4, System of a Down also made this list. I listened to them a ton, finally getting to see them live. I think the show was back in August, so always listening to them a lot. And Ween also made this list too. Ween was my number 5 this time on YouTube Music. So a lot of crossover between the transition of the two different platform wrap-ups. And actually, to get a little deeper on the Giz details, it specified that I listened to them for 2,712 minutes, which doesn't sound like a crazy amount, but then again, I only started using this platform in July or so, so for about half the year. But that still put me in the top 0.5% of listeners, and I think that's not so bad considering that I only had about half the year on this platform to listen to them.
Yeah, nice. So, and you have to keep in mind the fact, too, that all the rest of the Weirdo Swarm kind of migrated onto the other platforms also.
Yeah.
So that probably accounts for some, too.
Right.
Okay, yeah, cool. I wanted to give this is going to be my last stat, actually, because with titles kind of comparatively pared down offerings in terms of the stats, which is okay. I'm willing to sacrifice that for the CEO of said platform and company putting money toward unsavory items and sources. I wanted to mention this because I think it's so hilarious. I was apparently Bolant's 44th biggest fan on Tidal this year. Yeah.
44th.
So Bolant, obviously Joey's little side project, kind of ravey electronic side project that he does. He's only put out 2 full-length albums, but with a smattering of other singles in addition, I believe. He has one of those 2 albums in particular, Tyson Crying, released in early 2020. Just has these like very minimal beats that I think are perfect to hit the gym to, or sometimes just kind of chill out at home too if I'm working on a little project and I want a little more like basic background noise, but still some sort of beat to kind of keep my mind in a nice groove, kind of moving forward with things. I guess that kind of earwormed its way into my earbuds enough to make me Bolant's 44th biggest fan. How about that?
Awesome. Yeah, Bolant I checked out a while ago, and it's been a long time since I've gone back and listened to Joey's stuff on there, but maybe this is my sign to revisit it.
All right. Any more thrilling stats from your end?
Not really. I could just real quickly list my top 5 songs, I guess, that I played, because there's a little bit of variation there, but still mostly Giz. My number 1, however, was not Giz. It was this track called All Night by Killscript. This is an electronic, very classic kind of EDM sort of song that actually makes an appearance in a game that I play a lot, and I loved the sound of it and had to go and listen to the song a whole bunch, and that made it all the way up to my number 1, I guess, is how much I listened to it. Number 2 was Dead Stick on YouTube Music. It was number 1 on Spotify, but made number 2 on YouTube Music for me. Number 3 was Archangel by Pendulum. That was from their most recent album that I've mentioned a couple times now. Number 4 was Kepler 22b, because this song is just everywhere and I love it, but I can never escape it. It like auto plays every time I finish a Giz album or find any sort of playlist with like a mix of stuff that I like. It's always on there. So no matter what, I can't escape it. Kepler's always going to keep coming back on these lists, whether I like it or not. And number 5, weirdly, this seems weird to me. I don't think I listened to this song that much, but Hot Wax was my number 5 top song. Seems like a weird one out of the blue to me. I mean, I love it. I love Oddments. It's a classic. I love going back and revisiting it from time to time. But that one kind of surprised me. But that's my top 5 songs.
You must really love your Vibra Slap, man.
Oh, I sure do.
All right. Well, good stuff. I hope you enjoyed our kind of wrapping up of our stats patchwork as though it was, but, the deed needed to be done. As we talked about earlier in this segment, the migration off Spotify as a music platform was much needed in the light of the news that dropped this summer. And it's really good, I think, Joe, that Giz took a stand on that, and more artists certainly followed. I think Giz, in turn, actually took advice from Leah Senior, who we talked about very recently on the show, fellow Australian musician, kind of a folk musician who's appeared on a couple of their albums, and she was actually the first, at least on the Australian music scene that I'm aware of, that migrated off Spotify for the reasons we outlined.
Yeah.
And whether this is, forever, that CEO goes by the wayside and somebody, better with better ethics comes. I don't know, whatever. But this is the future is now. Like it was time to make a decision like that. It was a good, healthy decision. It was the right decision. And wacky as though it was to kind of have to go through the splits of the different platforms that we listened on, it was fun nonetheless, and I'm glad we got some inside glances into our listening habits of the past year. It's always fun to reminisce.
Yeah, it is. I had a lot of fun going through all the fun Giz things that happened this year, remembering some moments that I might have forgotten of off the top of my head, and and I love sharing what we listened to the most this year. I think it's a lot of fun, so if we lined up with you at all and you want to reach out to us and tell us that something we mentioned is one of your favorite bands or songs or something as well, then please feel free to do so. You can reach out to us anytime with any sort of info, whether it's content for the show or just little anecdotes you want to share or feedback on an episode of ours that you've listened to. You can reach out to us at Podagon Infinity on any of the major social media platforms, or send us an email to podagoninfinity@gmail.com anytime.
Please do reach out to us on any of our platforms if inspiration strikes. Like Joe said, if you have feedback on any of our episodes, or if you want to share some cool other music with us, we always welcome that, and we love hearing from all of you. As far as what's next up on Podagon Infinity, we will be taking kind of a short winter break, going to take the holidays to spend time with family and friends and loved ones, as one is wont to do, and we hope you are all able to do the same. Be sure to download and listen to this episode when you can. But we do appreciate your listenership and making us a part of your year, of your day, of your week, whatever. We love and enjoy all the support. But that being said, we are going to take a break for a few weeks. We don't know exactly how much, but we will be back sometime shortly after the new year with our next episode. And at the beginning of a new year, we are perhaps appropriately going back to the very beginnings of Giz. Joe, we're going way back in the discography here. How far back exactly, Joe, are we going with our next episode?
Next time on the show, we are taking it back to an album that isn't even technically considered an album because it's so short and all the songs are so short, but it's Giz's first major release. We're going back to Willoughby's Beach next time on the show.
Woo! Hope you're ready to go surfing, brah.
Yeah, and it's gonna be dead of winter when we release that, and so it might be nice to get that sort of fun, upbeat surf rock vibes to put us in a summer mindset while we're freezing.
Absolutely. As always, thank you for listening to Podagon Infinity, and thank you for keeping it weird and doing your part to spread the good word of the Giz. Take care of yourselves and each other, and we wish you a Merry Gizzmas and a Happy New Year. We'll see you in the next episode. Later, Gators.
Woo!
Followed by... Are you good?
Yeah, I inhaled some water.
Oh, shit.
Continue.
Arms up.